J4 coming out also on the Kalista on Misfits side, and then Cassiopeia. There's where things start to mix up a little bit. They decided it's not worth trying to pick it off early, but they don't want to give it away to PowerOfEvil.
This does mean that Misfits may look for an early Orianna themselves, or they may just wait, as they did for their third pick in the first half of the draft. Gragas still left unavailable, available rather. Fnatic, I imagine, will go for that in the early rotation, unless they want to completely shift things up and they get themselves the Orianna in.
That's always a possibility. For Fnatic, the Gragas was pretty crucial to them setting things up early on, but Misfits were able to turn it all around on its head quite quickly. Fnatic looks like they're going to be trusting the strategy, and they lock in the Gragas once more.
So nothing needs to change now for Misfits. They can go for the Gnar and the Xayah if they so want to. I think Xayah is a great AD carry for Summer. He had a really good performance in game 1. They fell a little bit behind during the very early laning stages, but once they got their first back, they got a bit more damage under their belt. That's where they were doing much, much better. And even after the repeated ganks that we saw coming out from Broxah, they still did not give away any kills. And that just shows the amount of growth that this bottom lane of Misfits have been able to accomplish in a very short space of time.
Yeah. You know, even if they weren't able to make it show during the regular season, it definitely has been there. And here's where we start to see things mixing up a little bit. Instead of the Xayah, they value the Orianna that wasn't allowed them the last time around, and they lock it in on their next.
I think it's a little bit risky from Misfits, because now Fnatic, they can get themselves the Xayah, and I wonder what Misfits would have as an answer, because commonly you'd see things like the Tristana and the Kalista being used, but we're instead going to see the LeBlanc. This is a big playmaking pick, a little bit reliant on snowballing. There's a big essence of risk. On 7.16, she did receive a nerf to the amount of wave clear that she has, because the amount of damage that the Shattered Orbs does on the proc has been reduced from 80% to 60%. So her wave clear early levels will be a little bit weaker, but from what I've heard from a lot of the pros, they actually quite like this matchup for the LeBlanc. We'll see how things progress in the early game as Misfits round things out with their AD carry.
Okay, so the Xayah left up to them again, they take it, but clearly Fnatic are banking on the fact that Caps is going to be able to snowball them ahead in the early game. Last on the Cassiopeia, he just got camped over and over again and never really got off to the rolling start that he needed. And now we enter ban phase 2 with 10 seconds ticking. Misfits, what are they going to take away? AD carries were what they focused on last time around. Rekkles didn't seem to have too much trouble when he picked the Ashe up. We'll start with the Sivir being banned out.
I think they just do the same thing. Force Rekkles onto something like an Ashe, where he didn't exactly have a bad performance. He was one of the only players on Fnatic still ahead in terms of gold against his lane opposition. However, he just couldn't really have the same level of playmaking power. A lot of his arrows, they landed true, but things like the cleanse, the early QSS resulted in those arrows not really resulting in a huge amount. So I imagine the Varus will be the next ban away, and I wonder if he goes for something like a Jhin. A little bit risky, a little bit more towards the early game, based on what I've seen from some of his solo queue that he's been playing recently. Could be an answer for the Xayah, but still a lot left of the draft, still a few things left before they lock in that AD carry.
Yeah, Misfits still some time left, and it is the Varus once more, so they see no need to change things up this time around, and now it's back to Fnatic for their final. They ban the Sejuani out, and this time they do not allow the Zac to go through, something that Maxlore had great success on in the previous game.
So this time around, Fnatic have said, nope, Cassio, we got camped really hard. We want to give Caps a little bit more playmaking power. We want to allow him to be one of the carries for the team, while also we want to deny a comfort pick for Maxlore, because we're investing in this Gragas, and right now it's not working out for us in terms of being able to deal with Zac. So Misfits definitely going to lose a little bit of early game pressure, unless they go for the Rengar.
Go big or go home, says Maxlore, as he locks in the big kitty, and we've seen this once from him.
Back in spring, Rengar was all the flavors. I don't know what the expression is, but he was super popular. He was really, really strong, borderline broken, picked a ban pretty much in every single game. And after we received a bunch of nerfs, he kind of fell off. No one really wanted to play him anymore. No one was interested. However, he's received a few subtle changes. Cinderholic's still pretty strong on him. Lethality had a bunch of buffs as well. And you're like, huh, maybe he could find his way back. And for Maxlore, Rengar was one of his true champions. It was something that he used to have a lot of success with back in the amateur scene before he even joined the LCS. And he's now found ways to make it work. He brought it out during the regular season, and he had a lot of success with it. So now he's trying to replicate that success here against Fnatic.
He might just get a chance to do it for Fnatic side. They lock in their bottom lane. The Ashe comes out once more for Rekkles. And it's followed by a Taric, another one of the Jesiz specials. Seen it on a handful of players, obviously, but once you time that ultimate, that Cosmic Radiance down to great effect, it can really be a big turnaround in team fights. And for the final pickup, Misfits lock the Blitzcrank for the big playmaking down bottom.
Oof. A little bit of a risk against the Taric. Melee supports typically do fairly well against champions like the Blitz, but he's mainly picking it for the Ashe, and maybe even the LeBlanc. The silence, very effective at shutting her down, locking her down. Remember, she is very squishy, so she gets knocked up. You get a follow-up damage from the rest of the Misfits lineup. That LeBlanc is going to die very, very quickly. And it also means that I feel like we're going to see a bit of a roaming death squad of Maxlore and IgNar in the early game. Early Moby Rush, going to start roaming around the map looking for picks with that level 6. Could be exciting. Looking forward to seeing how this works out.
Yeah, it could be a very different early game from what we saw in the first, with Fnatic making plays in and out of both jungles, being turned around by Misfits. Now, one game up, Misfits Gaming looking to take down fan favorites Fnatic. If they can do it one more time, they will be within one game of the finals here in Paris. Fnatic shocked in their first of this semifinals. They've had a few weeks to prepare for this Misfits squad. Will it be enough as they come with a new composition for game number 2 up against the Misfits right now? A lot of team fighting available. Once again, comfortable picks for this team. Do they have what it takes to knock off this surging Misfits squad? No matter what happens, I think it will certainly be an exciting affair, Vedius. We'll see if those predictions come true. Where they go early on, expected to be a bloodbath.
Oh, Misfits, they're looking to get themselves revenge. They lost 3-0 in Hamburg to the Fnatic team, the reformed, the changed Fnatic squad that suddenly made... They found their style and they steamrolled through Misfits. But now Misfits, they made these changes. They came into the playoffs looking dominant. They've picked up the Blitzcrank. They've picked up Rengar. They've got themselves all manner of comfort picks with the Orianna, the Xayah, the Blitzcrank. This is almost a perfect Misfits-style comp. Now let's see if they can execute it as effectively as they did in Game 1.
He pointed out a lot of risks that they took in this composition. If they could execute it, they played incredibly well, incredibly thorough in the previous game, not allowing really anything from Fnatic after the early game started happening. And Maxlore, he'll be once again a key to this team. A lot of damage from that Knife Cat.
Yeah, the Knife Cat is the danger here for Fnatic. So, for those that haven't seen Rengar in a while, Maxlore, he typically maxes his Q and then his E, so he's all about the damage. And he usually prefers to go for the Warrior enchantment into a very early Duskblade. Why is that a surprise? It's not. Because it's very easy to proc with his ultimate. You stealth yourself, and then you come out for a huge amount of burst damage. And these are the loyalty changes that we're talking about. And it's something that Maxlore, while in his solo queue games, has been making work out very nicely for himself. So I'm excited to see how well it works out in this game. You also have a really good ball delivery system. I imagine after the Duskblade that he's going to go a little bit tankier, but we'll have to wait and see as the game progresses, because if he's going to gank anywhere, I want to see him invest ganks into either the bot lane or the top lane.
Yeah. Talked a lot about what Maxlore was going to be able to get done to really facilitate this team early on in the last game. This time around, it's a very clear pattern of where he can go. PowerOfEvil on this signature Orianna can really just hold the line in a way that we didn't see him really doing last time since he got so snowballed. But there's a very early movement from Broxah down bot. He wants to get things started off right quick. This is the level 2.
Just going to very quickly check there. Does Jesiz have the stun? Yes, he does.
Oh, he's got it too. Instant exhaust. This is the all-in attempt for Fnatic. Instant heal as well. And they're just walking towards the 2-man belly bop. Forces the flash at IgNar, and Broxah follows suit as he was in danger of being caught on the rocket grab.
Good awareness there from Broxah to realize the risk of getting pulled under the tower. Handsam taking a lot of damage.
He's got no other flash, or he's got no heal. He had to flash away.
But now Rengar has come. Level 3. No exhaust on Jesiz, but all summoner spells available. There's no ward in the tri-bush. He could look to go around, but he gets spotted.
Yeah, there we go. Now he's going to be walking through, but Fnatic, they were a little wiser to this one. So even though Maxlore came around for the return, nothing doing A very early start once again for Fnatic with Broxah as the key for the early pressure. Caps, meanwhile, taking a little low in that mid lane. PowerOfEvil on half a mana bar is able to do quite a lot of work.
I feel like PowerOfEvil playing this 1v1 very nicely in the early game. The big thing to remember about this matchup is if you land the chains, things become very difficult for the Orianna, because she is pretty low in mobility. Now Alphari doing a lot of damage to sOAZ.
Oh yeah, no more hyper proc on that one. But of course, mirror matchup we saw last time. We might once again see some more pressure up to the top. Broxah, his job done down on the bottom at level 3 with his blue buff now, making sure that Maxlore isn't around. Counterpart as he's a little bit busy down on the bottom with the Krugs. Might look for a gank up top. Caps, meanwhile, trying to put a little bit more damage onto PoE. Doesn't land the chains.
And we heard Maxlore just before the game talk about how he thinks that he and Alphari have the strongest synergy. It's going to be really important for them to invest more into the top side. They need Alphari to succeed if they want to be able to win. And in game 1, he was able to build a pretty significant lane advantage. But I feel like that he wasn't the real carry of game 1, because you really have to look towards the mid lane and jungle synergy, because sure, it's all very good that Maxlore talked a lot about how he as a player was wants to invest in top lane, he wants to help Alphari succeed, but he was all about making sure that PowerOfEvil was the real carry of that game. And just look at that damage per minute on the Syndra, 754. The average damage of Syndra during the regular season here in Summer was 580. And in wins, it was 606. So you can see how much more damage PowerOfEvil was doing by going for that risky build, which ended up working out beautifully for him in game 1.
Well, they had the game plan and were able to stick to it. Maxlore consistently showing up to mid lane, bouncing through, and it's just so hard to predict those gank paths on the Zac. It's what's made him such a powerful jungler. But in Maxlore's hands, it was absolutely critical. Now Broxah, he's trying to once again set up some more camp down bottom, but this time Misfits were ready for him. With the ward in just expired, they place another, and they know he's still going to be waiting out there for the time being, and looks like we won't be seeing first blood just yet.
He wants to try and punish the lack of flashes on the bottom lane of Misfits. Broxah doing what he can to try and get some advantages for the Fnatic duo. We really want to take a minute to recognize those impressive Orianna stats on PowerOfEvil. This guy has drawn a lot of Orianna bans, and it is very justified because of his performance on this champion. He goes for those creative builds. He goes for things like the Rod of Ages into the Nash's Tooth. And if he decides to go for it, we can talk a little bit more about it. And in this game, there's actually a very good chance that he will go for that itemization build path, largely because he likes to stack health against assassins, but also he loves to have that consistent DPS when he's going up against two big tanky front lines in the form of a Cho'Gath and a Gragas. So keep your eyes out for the PowerOfEvil special.
Well, wait a little while before the gold starts stacking now. Maxlore, he's back down to the bottom side. On level 5, he will not have Thrill the Hunt up and available. Broxah only 4. He's made his way up to the top. Alphari nearly has a full Gnar bar. I don't know if this gank is well advised. Rupture does land, however. Before he can transform, insta first blood, but we got no time to take a pause because down on the bottom, Jesiz being fired down. Teleport coming in for sOAZ. Misfits need to turn tail and run. The arrows are coming, and so is Caps. Taking out Maxlore. A quick 2 for Fnatic.
Good answer from Caps in the bottom lane. The moment he saw Maxlore, he goes to the TP down. Misfits, or PowerOfEvil rather, cannot interrupt, which means that they get a kill on top side, they get a kill on bottom. sOAZ just hit 6, which means that he gets the kill before Alphari goes into Gnar. And Fnatic now, the team with a great early lead.
This is excellent for a Fnatic team right now, as shutting down Maxlore is pretty crucial, not giving him a kill even better, and to take him out on top of Alphari, well, that's pretty solid.
See, now Alphari, he feels pretty safe here, but the silence into the knockup means that he can't use his flash or escapes, and he ends up dropping. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Maxlore, he wants to land his bolo onto Jesiz, but look at the positioning of that Taric, always making sure that he's standing behind a minion or Rekkles, which means that that second route cannot come down from Maxlore, and he doesn't end up losing his life, and it is Maxlore that ends up dropping instead. Really good play from the support of Fnatic right there. Now Misfits, they're the ones playing with an early deficit. We know how these guys are so used to playing with an early lead, how they can sometimes struggle when they're forced to play from behind.
Yeah, we just haven't seen them really have a whole lot of success when it's come down to it, and with Fnatic challenging them and a risky composition that's relying on this Maxlore pressure. We'll see if that changes. Shockwave is going to whiff. Caps just jumped right out of it, and on top of it, dodged out Maxlore. How is that for a nice trick in the mid lane? And he's a little more wary. So the jungle pressure after last game's affair.
You're quite right. Gap's not quite struggling as much as he did in game 1. Maxlore finding it much harder to snowball PowerOfEvil on this Orianna. Doesn't quite have the same gank setup that a Syndra does have. But his focus should really be on trying to snowball the bot or top lane. And while he did invest an early gank into the bottom side of the map, that ended up backfiring in the favor of Fnatic. So now he can't be disheartened. He's heading towards that level 6 mark. He's working towards his warrior enchant, so his early game damage is going to be pretty significant. But with 4 members of Fnatic grouping up bot side and an arrow landing, that could for this.
Oh no. Looks like this is the dive they're looking for, and even a teleport coming in. Trying to buy a little time here is IgNar, but the Cosmic Radiance comes down. Maxlore says, I don't think I'm going to go for that one. Instead, he actually decides to jump back in. The rocket grab, they've got Broxah on this, but the double stun, nonetheless, they still get the kill. They save the tower. Misfits get the kill on that.
Beautiful hook from IgNar. This guy landed some spectacular plays in their series versus the Unicorns of Love, and he is repeating it against Fnatic as he goes for another.
Ooh, that was close.
Classic caster curse. You always praise them and then they go wide.
You know, shouldn't worry about it too much, and you can see why Blitzcrank, one of the more played champions for IgNar, and Thresh was up and available, arguably a more reliable hook, right? But IgNar, he loves to go for the gold, make those big plays, and you can see why. More often than not, he's able to hit them, and as he gets one onto Jesiz, in comes Hansama. Do they have the damage? Exhaust is down. Ignite is there. Featherstorm! And they're going to be able to finish the job. IgNar with the burning down.
Misfits bottom lane stepping up to the challenge once again. Yes, they failed that early gank, but this time they're turning it around the 2 versus 2. Jesiz, without his flash, he had no way to get out of that. The moment IgNar landed that hook, he was pretty much left for dead. And Misfits. Okay, so let's have a look at how this dive. Level 5 Hansama means that he is a prime subject to be dived upon. He dodges all of the major CC, and Fnatic realize, okay, they've split up, we have to disengage, let's just go for the tower. Here comes Maxlore. Big crit onto Broxah with such a finely placed hook onto Broxah, who has no flash, allows Hansama to get that kill and turn it around and alleviate the pressure from Misfits.
All right, so Misfits get a little bit of pressure back and are able to equalize on that goal game. Maxlore right back to the mid. Caps jumps in, Caps jumps out. Power is trying to bait him into a fight, but he's wiser than that one. But as it settles for the time being, we really got to give a lot of credit to that Misfits bottom lane. Playing it out incredibly well, but IgNar, he's going to have to get out and dodge. Uh-oh, he gets knocked into the rest of Fnatic and can't quite land that hook. Nothing for him to do. There's your caster curse, Vedi.
You tried to praise the bottom lane, then he goes and loses his life. Now, look at the top lane, Alphari and sOAZ going at it again.
All right, sOAZ taking a lot of damage, but he gives just as good as he gets. However, Maxlore looks to cut him off under the tower. Rupture does not land, and they hop on top. The knives are being sunk in and through the feast. Maxlore finishes the kill, and now it's on the tower. They go.
Oh, the hunter finds his prey as Maxlore gets the kill down onto sOAZ. Misfits, they'll be able to get their first tower of the game. And while IgNar made a bit of a misplay roaming through the river, trying to get vision of the Drake because he was wary of Fnatic starting it off, Maxlore took advantage of the fact that he knew where the enemy jungler was, and he could punish the fact that sOAZ was very low after a good trade from Alphari. So Misfits, they've answered back. They've been able to quickly get back an early game advantage, but Fnatic aren't responding. They return with a tower of their own. They're going to return with an early Drake of their own. And this game off to a very close beginning, just like we saw in game 1.
Yeah. Happened in a very different way, but Fnatic nonetheless were able to get a nice lead.
I think he's dead.
Misfits turn it around. Yeah, I think Hansama might be out of tools. Wait a minute, there's not enough Fnatic members here though, and there's the root up, but he's got to be careful not to push too far forward. Backup's not there. Although the rest of Fnatic are coming. That is a fake LeBlanc though, so they might not be baited by it. Just gonna clear away a few more wards, and yeah, IgNar, despite being caught, he's had a pretty solid game, but I really want to give some praise to Hansama. He knows exactly when to pull those Featherstorms. We saw in the previous game, he knew exactly what to do, where to be in the right place at the right time, and maybe he was overshadowed by PoE's performance. But in the quarterfinals, I mean, he was one of the primary carries, 3 games on Tristana, and this guy was looking like a god.
I mean, I've got to say, Pyra, I was one of the big critics for Hansama. When you look back, especially towards some of the later weeks of the regular season, he was a big part of some of the deficits the Misfits were involved in. They were losing in the 2 versus 2. He was randomly getting caught out, and you had to wonder, when is this guy going to be performing at the level that a lot of the fans expected him to be coming out of the Challenger Series. And coming into the quarterfinals, you can just see the difference in his performance. In lane, he was doing so much better. In overall team fighting, he was doing so much better. And this guy, something just clicked for him. This meta just seems to be doing something great, as he seems to have just found the champions that work, and he's having a stellar playoff performance.
And what's so incredible about this is he's doing it against some star AD carries. He did it against Samix on the Unicorns of Love, who's a more quiet player that we still often give praise for his mechanical prowess. He's doing it against Rekkles, one of the best known and most famous for his play AD carries that Europe has ever produced. This is an incredible feat for a young player, for Hans Sama right now, and if he's able to overcome this Fnatic squad, I mean, all credit to him.
And you got to remember how big of a deal it is for Hans Sama to be able to play in his home crowd. Listening back to the PowerOfEvil interview, he said, last split, we played in Hamburg and it was for me, whereas this split is for Hans Sama. He wants to play in France. He wants to play in front of his home crowd. And to play in the final in front of the French crowd, I'm sure would be such a huge achievement for him. But that's a lot of narrative. Let's get back into the game. Pyra catches up where we're at right now.
Yep, they've got to get there first. Rift Herald being taken out by Misfits, but Fnatic once again throwing all their weight behind trying to grab themselves an inner turret with only Alphari there to try and defend. It's 1-2 on towers as Fnatic have managed to find another, but that's the only place on the map where they do have that push going, and Alphari will be perfectly happy to catch this wave. Pretty even on the gold.
Fnatic. Their laners have done relatively well, but similar sort of deficit in the top lane. So it's struggled against Alphari, especially after losing his top tower. In the mid, Caps has been getting a lot of kills by roaming around the map. And that's why he's currently sitting at 2-0, but that has resulted in a slight gold deficit, enabling him to complete that Gunblade, giving him a big power spike to allow him to be that side lane threat. Meanwhile, Rekkles just doing what Rekkles normally does. Now at level 9 to level 8, big CS advantage. Likely going to be getting that. Ooh, hook lands.
Oh no, Caps. He was shopping, and there's nowhere for him to go. He jumps in, surrounded by Misfits inside the jungle. PowerOfEvil says thank you very much for my blue buff back.
He was hoping that he could get out with the back, but he ended up getting punished for that risky back spot. And now IgNar once again landing hook after hook. Can he do it again?
Well, Misfits keen on pushing this mid tower. Remember, they do have a Rift Herald to work with, but Maxlore's not there. Instead, they take a few pot shots at it. Don't fully commit. Fnatic, they need Caps to be able to start taking out these carries, and having him get caught like that, feed the buff back over. It's not a good look for them at the moment as Broxah a little bit occupied on the red buff. IgNar is, oh my goodness.
He's gonna steal this, isn't he?
Oh, what a cheeky move.
Oh, IgNar.
Gotta love it.
A legend.
So that sucks for Broxah.
Yeah, feels bad, man. But good momentum swing for Misfits.
Yeah.
So let's have a look, see. Dragon going to be spawning in about 2 minutes' time. Right now, there is a tier 1 in the mid lane and in the bottom lane for Misfits to take. Arrow, just fails to interrupt, which means that Misfits, they're now looking to take this mid tower down. They have 4 members here. Well, they're actually going to back away. That's because they know they're going to get it.
All right, Rift Herald's done his job. They just primed it up, and 2-2 in towers. Fnatic trying to find an opening, but it's difficult because where they have the most pressure, on the bottom side, not a whole lot for them to do. You got to take a look at how these compositions are laid out, though. Caps, seemed like Fnatic put a lot of stock in him early on, but what else can they do?
And that's the biggest thing, Pyra, because we haven't talked a huge amount about these compositions, and as you rightly identified, a lot of investment has been put into Caps. Him roaming around the map, trying to get some early kills, very important for this LeBlanc because she wants to become a big side lane threat to try and deal with Alphari a little bit later into the game. Now, the thing is, the 5v5, not that strong for Fnatic because of how difficult it is for the LeBlanc to play in teamfights. So they'd much rather split open the map, try and find small skirmishes, try and find picks, using the Ashe and LeBlanc to just catch their targets unaware. And then once they have a numbers advantage, that's when they group up, because you have the Taric, who's really good at stalling out and disengaging fights. You also have the Gragas, who's also good, paired alongside the Cho'Gath to disengage a lot of these fights. And they basically want to just keep Misfit at arm's length for as long as possible, because these guys want to fight with the Orianna, with the Xayah, and when you pair that up with the Gnar ultimate too, you've got all this great wombo combo potential that's great for forcing objectives, especially in the later game.
Yeah, and you mentioned the the ability of Misfits, especially between the jungle and the support, to start roaming around. Well, the entire Misfits squad has been pretty much roaming around, and a few towers traded back and forth. Misfits fairly happy with that, as they can also grab themselves a Mountain Drake. This will equalize on the Dragons to allow for a little bit more effective pushing, and you can see both teams kind of allowing the map to shift one way or the other with the vision control. Fnatic controlling wards in the top side, Misfits the same in the bottom.
And Misfits, thanks to that vision, they will be able to get themselves the early drain. Now Caps, he has been moved off into a side lane to answer that of Alphari. The 1v1 has begun. All this vision investment, Fnatic, they're setting up for the Baron. They want to try and steal away this red buff too. Allows them to try and find picks, as Misfits also want to move towards defending their top tier 1.
Oh, they've got Broxah. Shockwave pulls him in, and Misfits take him out. Red buff resets, and the rest of Fnatic realize they're not going to be able to get away as Caps flashes. PowerOfEvil with the bone. It's going to be dodged out, but Caps can't do it again, and Maxlore tags back for round 2. 2 quick picks by the Misfits team.
Even though Fnatic had set up great vision in the top half of Misfits jungle, and even though their intention was to be the ones to catch Misfits out, it is IgNar again that uses his hook to get onto Broxah. This early on, he's still very squishy, so PowerOfEvil and along with Hansama are able to very quickly burst him down, and that's where things start to open up. You can see there's no vision there from Fnatic because of the control ward. Broxah ends up dropping extremely quickly. And Fnatic, or Caps rather, he has no real options. Maxlore's in the top half, you have Alphari and PowerOfEvil in the bottom half, he doesn't have any dashes left, and he's like, ah, this sucks. And he gets a knife in the back, thanks to Maxlore, who's now 2-1-2.
Yeah, Caps goes from 2-0 to 2-2 at the moment, and now we see PowerOfEvil stacking up on the damage, Maxlore stacking up on the damage. There's that Duskblade you mentioned, and if you are Caps or Rekkles, you're going to be a little bit worried about the way this game is going.
Yeah, because one of the big things about Rengar is that when he hits you out of his stealth, it always crits. So then you have a Duskblade proc, you have a crit, and you have a lot of AD very early on into the game with only your base armor on both squishy targets, and maybe some runes in there as well. So that's a lot of burst damage, Pyra. Like, a lot. And it's really easy for him to get on top of you too if he can find the right flank path. And we talked about how for Maxlore, this used to be one of his big comfort picks before he even joined the LCS. I love the fact that he's been able to find some of these unique champions. He brought out the Kayn last week, he's bringing out the Rengar this week, and he's making them work very effectively with his team.
Yeah, that's that level of growth. We're starting to see a little bit of unpredictability in what he brings to play. But for Fnatic, you mentioned the game plan for them. Try to arm's length the Misfits. Was it necessary for them to push so far into that jungle, knowing that the possibility of punishment existed?
Well, they knew that they had full control of the top side because Caps had pressure in the 1v1 up in the top lane. They also knew that they had push on mid, and the only thing they really had to be careful about was a flanking TP from bot, but because they knew they had control over river, they thought they had everything covered. The big turning point was that single control wall that you can see on your minimap in Misfits' half of the jungle that just denied the vision. And so because of that, they had no idea where IgNar was. He then initiates the hook, and it's all because of that one single control ward in the back of Misfits jungle that was able to swing the favor towards Misfits.
Yeah, that was the playmaking ability, and it's allowed Misfits to get this gold lead going. 3,000 in their favor. Fnatic still trying to snatch back some vision control as Misfits back to spend a little bit more gold. For Misfits, it feels like the game has shifted in their control, and we talked about them not necessarily showcasing playing too well from behind. Well, from the beginning of this game, it seems like they've executed that.
Yeah, they don't let themselves get behind, Pyra. That seems to be their strategy in the early game. Way to do it. Yeah, they just get these early leads, and they don't stop and trying to make stuff happen in the early game. And I think this is the key thing, because Misfits as a team, I feel like, have really struggled to really stand out amongst a lot of the other top teams. You think about a team like Fnatic, they always had the Fnatic style. They literally had a style named after them. As Hansama, ooh, good ulti there.
Yeah, that fake LeBlanc is fooling nobody.
They gonna find anyone? Nope, just gonna disengage. So
he's got body cards.
But yeah, of course he does. But the big thing here is, yeah, Fnatic, they had a style named after them, but when you think about Misfits, they never really had any outstanding or defining playstyles about them. There was nothing unique. You always wondered, how does this team really win? Coming into the playoffs, they seem to have found that. They seem to be always getting early game leads. They seem to know exactly what to do with the early game leads. And while in the mid game, they certainly, as a team, slow down a little bit. it's more because they're just being cautious. They want to make sure that their play has an 80 to 90% chance of success before they commit to it. And I think that's fine. You just have to be careful, because a team like Fnatic will always try to be proactive themselves, and they're going to look to see if they can catch you unawares and find ways back into the game.
Yeah, I think increases the level of caution that Misfits play with. You can see them as a squad, as a unit, trying to avoid being caught out at any moment by this Fnatic team who are camping up in the brush. But it's only Caps there. The rest of them decided they didn't like roughing it, and now they move away. Misfits, once again, being able to establish some vision control in this game. And yeah, the identity question has kind of been a long puzzling thing for Misfits, and maybe it just took a little while for it to all come together. But it seems like they didn't change up that much, especially not about how they picked their champions. It's still the same type of roles that they're comfortable in.
No, I just think the biggest thing is that individually they all stepped up. They seem to be playing a lot more comfortably. And Maxlore is just having a lot more of an impact on not just a single lane, all of the lanes. He doesn't just have to camp PowerOfEvil. He can actually invest into the other parts of the map where he can help them succeed and get that early lead. So now looking at things, how things are playing out. Clouddrake is available. Baron becomes a big point of contention. Both teams have completed a lot of their second items, now working on third for some of the Misfits members as well. Healthy goal lead going in their favor, and you're looking at both teams and you're thinking, now how do they close out this game? Because for Misfits, they're very much about trying to find a pick, maybe with Maxlore, maybe with IgNar, and then they can just force one of these big 5v5 fights, which at this point in the game especially, they know they can win. But for Fnatic, it is risky trying to force a 5v5, but they're going to do it. At the very least, they're going to try and get a TP out from Alphari as the Baron has been started.
They might just get it, but they think twice as Caps takes a huge chunk from the attack dissonance. Teleport coming out. Now, will Misfits full engage? The answer is yes. The thrill of the hunt is out, but Alphari is the one that looked to be hunted down before he goes over the wall. Three-man shockwave. Maxlore starts off the casualties by finishing off Caps, and the Cosmic Radiance comes a bit too late. The party barrel not going to do a damn thing as Hansama over the wall takes down Jesiz. 2 quick picks. And now it's Misfits, the lead still.
And this is the risk you run trying to fight this Misfits composition 5v5, especially if they catch you in a choke point. Fantastic ultimate from Alphari, locking 3 members against the wall to allow PowerOfEvil to get the multi-man ulti, but Broxah still alive. He wants to try and challenge this smite as another fight kicks off.
Here we go, shut down. Oh, he gets an eat off, and now Maxlore's not there to try and smite it away. This is dangerous for Misfits as sOAZ in the front gets that one. Hansama not fallen just yet. Oh boy, that was close. I thought that health bar was going down to 0.
Unbelievable. Fnatic, they're able to stop the Baron. They get the kill down onto Maxlore with only 3 members, and they're able to keep their hopes alive. So let's have a look at how this fight kicks off. Misfits, they know they don't even have to force a fight just yet. Fnatic, they're in between 2 decisions. They're not sure whether to commit to the fight or disengage. And here they see, okay, we can shut down Alphari. This is a good setup for us, but they cannot respect the knockback. Caps ends up dropping immediately. Hansama flash, he doesn't even need to use his flash over the wall because he can just use his ulti, get nice and close, lock up multiple members, and then the chase is on. And they get themselves a few kills. So now if we can just see, we're not going to be able to see the turnaround from the side of Fnatic, but sOAZ being able to get the kill down onto Maxlore is really what enabled them to push Misfits away from the Baron and stop that objective from falling into the hands of their enemy.
Stops the bleeding, and it's like you were talking about a lot in game number 1. Fnatic are so familiar with playing on the back foot. They've done it so many times in the European LCS. They don't even seem phased. They still lose 2 members, but they're able to turn that one around, stop the Baron, stop the bleeding. And now, despite the gold lead, it still seems like Fnatic have a bit of a tempo, they've gained back here.
The big thing here is that this game feels a lot closer than the gold may suggest. Once again, we're in a situation where Fnatic, in a 5v5, they're unlikely going to win the fight. However, just look at the vision that they have across the map. You can see a lot of wards were able to be dropped around the Baron. This point is very important this lane into the game. And the fact that Fnatic control it, even though they're at a gold deficit, just goes to show what they're able to do when they are pushed back. And Misfits, they're just a little hesitant right now. They're going to slowly push out these lanes as an arrow comes out.
Yeah, looks like it's going to land onto Maxlore. The chains are there, and he's going to get popped. The barrel sends him packing after Caps did all the damage work, and now it is Fnatic who turn these tables. to get one quick pick out, and Maxlore, that damage is all gone. Fnatic, it looks like they're going to try and force this Baron without a smite to contest. It's going to be hard for Misfits to peel him off.
They only have to wait for Alphari's Gnar to run out, and they can start it if they so please. There's also a bottom wave pushing in the favor of Fnatic. Everything going their way right now. Let's see if Misfits can stop the Baron.
I got to be careful. Banshee's Veil popped his PowerOfEvil, walks right into the queue from Caps, and sOAZ trying to lead the line. Here's Caps as well. A lot of damage dealt onto the Cho'Gath. The Cosmic Radiance comes in, but they peeled off Baron. Misfits, if they can get out with their lives, this is exactly what they want. Pulling it too. Man, Shockwave, and down goes Jesiz to PowerOfEvil. Meanwhile, Rekkles caught by 3 Misfits. Caps going in. He gets 1, and he gets out alive. Oh my word, a 1 for 3 as Alphari takes down Broxah. That fight went so long, Gnar came right back up.
Look at the grin on Hussein's face. He knows that Misfits have just won a massive fight. Maxlore is on his way back. There is no jungler on the side of Fnatic. And again, Misfits find the successful fight. This is exactly what Maxlore was talking about before the game. If Fnatic go for the Baron, we know we can fight them for it. We know we're going to fight a lot around that objective, and they do it so fantastically. They only have 4 members. sOAZ, he's going to sit on the front line, and here they go. Let's force the fight. Hansama, he is able to dish out a huge amount of damage onto sOAZ before he's even able to get into the thick of things. Then, because Fnatic funnel into a choke point, a great shockwave splits Fnatic up, and now Rekkles, he doesn't have any peel anymore. He ends up dropping down. Alphari can clean up the jungler on the back end, and Misfits with only 4 members are able to out-team fight Fnatic once more.
Yeah, we were thinking 5v5 Misfits at the edge, but who knew they had it in the 4v5? They just kept on going. And in that fight, the big turning point, it definitely was the Shockwave, but perfect ability targeting and usage for Misfits. What an incredible performance from this team. They are 1-0 up. They're looking to make that 2 right now. Taking out Fnatic in the midst of the Renaissance. The best season Fnatic have had since 2015. The best split they've had, rather. It's looking great right now. Cosmic Radiance comes down, but that's the disengage as Fnatic are backing away. We've hit 30 minutes on this clock. But with the Baron buff, Alphari doing work down bottom, Misfits holding on in the mid to try and push Fnatic back. Everything is going this team's way.
Maxlore, the hunt is up. He's looking for a target. But they just need to keep Fnatic busy while Alphari split pushes down in the bottom lane. Fnatic, their backs are being pushed against the wall once more. We talked about how this LeBlanc could definitely be a risky pick, and while he started off strong, they have not been able to make it work out. Misfits have been playing immaculately once more. You know, at the start of the day, Pyro, we were talking backstage, and a lot of people were expecting Fnatic to get a really dominant performance. And a lot of discussion was going around like, you know, I'm not entirely sure if Misfits can afford to be underestimated. I feel like, especially when you look at how well they played individually and as a team against the Unicorns of Love, these guys really have shown a lot of growth. And I think that with Fnatic, their early game proactivity is not that great, especially when you compare it to that of Misfits and Maxlore's performance. Now, here we go. Misfits, they're setting up for a bit of a siege.
All right, pulls the wheelie. There is the arrow. It comes in. Tower's already fallen. Alphari near the Mega. You can see the flank on the backside as we turn the camera. sOAZ looking for the fight. Alphari pushes him right into the remnants of the turret. Cosmic Radiance comes down. That's a few seconds to work with. Caps goes in, and the Shockwave pulls them back on Sama with a massive kill onto the mid laner. Alphari finds sOAZ, and he's leading the charge onto the rest of Fnatic. Rekkles, isolated, forgotten, and out of there. Only Broxah Jesiz remain, and it's still 30 seconds of Baron.
And Misfits crushed Fnatic once more. They're looking to take the base. They're looking to take the game. 30 seconds left on Caps. Let's see if Misfits can end it right here.
They're going to certainly go for it, trying to wait no longer as they push down the line. The death timer's still ticking, and there is no chance. There is no hope. Misfits are going to take this one to match point. And what a game from this team.
Misfits lead the series 2-0, Pyra.
Not words we would have expected to say to start this day, but what an incredible game 2 from them. Taking fight after fight.
PowerOfEvil gets himself the Orianna, a big comfort pick for him. He doesn't go for any unconventional builds. He keeps it standard. He makes it work. Hansama with another fantastic performance, but The real star was IgNar. Again on this Blitzcrank. So many clutch hooks, so many great picks. This Misfits squad have shown so much growth over such a short period of time. They are 1 win away from playing in the finals in Paris, Pyra. This is such a big deal. And who would have thought, like, everyone was expecting Fnatic, this superstar squad, 11-2 during the regular season. They seemed to be unchallenged. They ended their season by defeating G2 2-0. And everyone was like, no, that's it. Fnatic, they're going to clean sweep. They're going to make it to the final. But it is now Misfits that are in prime position of Fnatic. They need to reverse sweep if they still want to make it to the final.
They need to, but this is hauntingly similar to what we saw last week against the Unicorns of Love. A lot of people chalked up, drafting decisions on the Unicorns and maybe didn't give Misfits the credit that they deserve, but what an incredible performance to put themselves on the precipice of the finals. Now Misfits, they are well on their way towards a huge upset against Fnatic, so here are our analysts for more on Game 2.
Well, then, Misfits Gaming, they've talked so much about their one-year plan, and they are doing fantastically so far. They might just very well be in the final of the European LCS and one step closer to the World Championship. And on the other side, the old Kings look very, very far away from that throne. So let's, well, shore up what happened here in Game 2. I want to take a look at picks and bans because you mentioned a lot before. It's going to come down to drafting a lot, as it always does, but specifically here because Misfits were able to outdraft the Unicorns of Love so hard in the previous quarterfinal. So how do you judge their Game 2 draft and their drafts overall so far?
I think Misfits draft in the second game here, only question mark was kind of the Rengar. It was a big gamble from Maxlore's side. I think everything else is super, super solid. I love the early take on Orianna. I think Orianna right now is fantastic because she's safe laning phase and very strong late game teamfights, which we will see as well in some of the later fights in this game. And also the fact that you get Gnar for Alphari is something that's super good for him.
Yeah, for sure. Like, given Alphari the same champion 2 games in a row into Cho'Gath, the Gnar into Cho'Gath is a good matchup because at some point, Gnar is going to win teamfights for you if he just jumps in. And he's going to win the set and push too. So it's a phase-safe champion. And I still think that Misfits draft is, like, as you said, the Rengar being, like, iffy kind of. Like, it's risky. But I like the confidence that they're showing their players. Like, given Orianna to PowerOfEvil saying, hey, you will be fine against whatever matchup they're going to throw at you. And just throwing in the Rengar and the Blitzcrank, which are cocky champions. But if you make them work, they look really good.
And then we have to also go over to Fnatic's side real quick. I normally really love Taric a lot. I think he has a cool place in the meta. I really did not like him a lot in this draft because to me, Taric is super good if you have a lot of champions that can dive the backline. Think like a Jarvan or Renekton who can really get onto the carries and you put the Taric passive onto one of those guys and then you can actually like go in and you can get like the stun from the front. You can get the shield that covers backline and front line. This game, when you run with Cho'Gath, he runs at the enemy. He doesn't dive at the enemy that way. And the Gragas from Broxah is, in teamfights, currently invisible. So there is no actual backline threat other than sOAZ with the odd flank from time to time. And so the Cho'Gath doesn't really function 100%, and the Taric definitely didn't.
So Misfits, very good drafting. I do want to come back to the personal performances of either team in just a bit. But first, I want to talk about the in-game specifics, the fact that Fnatic, they had a relatively good start, right? And we saw in Game 1 that they tried to get back in the game. And here, they try to accelerate their lead. But why does it go wrong?
Yeah, it goes wrong because they kind of become overconfident. Like, they rely on skill shots that like are not necessarily phase safe. So they overextend, have all the players committed, and Broxah overextending here and being hooked in just shows like kind of the symptoms like that I was talking about, or that we were talking about, that they overextend for things that they're not supposed to. They're not quite sure in their place almost. I feel like that they do things that they're not supposed to do at certain times and give the enemy's ability to basically come back.
I also really want to praise Hansama in that play. Like, he dodges both the key skill shots that could lock him down so he would then eventually die. And then right after he dodges the skill shots, IgNar then actually hooks Broxah back in. They secure the first kill. And right after the replay, they got another kill on Taric as well, set up by IgNar. So the bottom lane of Misfits right there literally just outplayed Fnatic.
Well, I want to relay that into a bigger point, something we looked at last week and before the game, or the match rather, was, the individuals. I think you said the individual level of the players, Misfits cannot match them, so they have to outdraft and outplay. But not sure if it's Fnatic underperforming and their individual players not showing up, like you mentioned, Broxah. But what is sure is that the Misfits players are absolutely in the zone, Maurice. It seems like the games they won against UOL and these, they're just hitting every skill shot and they feel completely aligned.
Yeah, it seems like they just have so much confidence and like just security going for them, where they know what they're gonna do at certain times and they always are like trusting their members. Like, so like even PowerOfEvil, like who I thought was worse than Caps, is outperforming him. He's way better in teamfights. He's way more disciplined. And Hansan, who's also hailed as like worse than Rekkles, is still like putting the individual performance. He doesn't die to ganks. He puts up a lot of pressure, and he actually wins teamfights for them. So it seems like Fnatic is playing down, but I definitely think that Misfits right now is overperforming.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Let's take a look at another team fight, which was also peculiar, the fact that I guess Fnatic found themselves in this position at this point.
Yeah, this is so we're already doing the game, kind of discussed how it really felt like Fnatic were just so disrespectful in many ways. They were playing like this replay. They have no vision on the backside, and yet Broxah doesn't move behind the red buff. He just ignores like, oh, there's a control ward behind me. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. I can just stand in front of this red buff. There's surely not a Rengar or Blitzcrank or whatever showing up. But if he literally just goes to the other side of the red buff right there, he does not get hooked in. They do not lose this fight. And these are the kind of plays where you just have to point out that Fnatic are extremely cocky in their play style. And they are completely disrespecting Misfits even after losing the first game. That's why they're losing a second game now. And they're currently looking like a team who's going to get 3-0'd.
Yeah, amazing. To round this off, you were seeing some similarities with what happened at Rift Rivals and which we thought would be the turning point after that. The same kind of things are showing up.
Yeah, like, I mean, the players are just cocky, and I honestly think that, like, I was always asking myself, like, what is going to happen if Fnatic is actually met by individual players that can match them, like, on every basis. So we saw the Rift Rivals, they got, I guess, kind of demolished by TSM and by, I think, C9 too. And we see it again, like Misfits is playing way above the level and it's actually matching them individually. So it all comes down to like understanding the meta more and better. And I think Misfits is actually a step ahead right now.
Well, if they're playing above their level for 5 games in a row now, is this not Misfits' actual level?
It's the new level of Misfits. Like, we've always felt like Alphari was a super good top laner. He showed it in the spring split, but then he had a pretty quiet like summer split. Until now, we're hitting playoffs and he's getting things like Gnar, and then suddenly he's actually performing back to that spring split level. So I think we should just celebrate the fact that all the Misfits players for 5 games in a row are now actually playing much better than they did during the regular season.
Agreed, but now is when push comes to shove. They have to win one more game, and Fnatic somehow has to find a way to untilt if they are tilted. So amazing. Can Fnatic turn it around?
I think they can, but they really have to reset their mindset and actually think about what is actually good for other teams and not just for us. Because honestly, in this meta, it's really, really easy to win a game if you just have a safe early game, good scaling mid game, insane late game. And given so many openings early game and mid game, it's just not good. So like, trust yourselves, but also think about what's actually working for other teams, not just for yourself.
Yeah, why not stop banning Tristana on blue side and first pick Tristana for Rekkles?
They're on blue side again.
A great mobile scaling AD carry, and then draft 2 tanks in the front and maybe a support who can engage, like an Alistar or something for Jesiz. And suddenly you got a shield wall in front of a scaling AD carry who can win team fights, and you might have an easier time also starting fights where it's not just on either Broxah or a Righteous Glory Cho'Gath.
We'll see what happens. Shocking developments so far. Misfits are just 1 win away from securing a spot in the finals in Paris for the first time in their history. The next game is coming up in a couple of minutes. Don't miss it.
Do they have what it takes?